Hey guys, what's up? Joe, morning coffee. Post for the thumbnail. In this video, what I want to show you is basically the benefits of using macros to edit faster and all that stuff, right? I brought up my mouse. This is my favorite mouse that I like to use when it comes to editing, the Roccat Nyth. Yeah, I've been using this thing pretty much the whole time I've been editing with PAR, right? Now, there are other options, you know, instead of like the Roccat Nyth mouse. You got Corsair, you know, they do pretty cool stuff, right? They actually have like a mouse similar to the Roccat Nyth that I like to use, right? You know, you got the side here, but it's that you can create macros with, right? These mice are not cheap, right? You're gonna be spending like $80 to $100, depending like on the brand that you get, right? Corsair, they have like the IQ software, which I'm gonna show you how to create a macro today using the IQ software. Razer, they seem to have like the Razer Synapse 3. And from the looks of it, you are able to create macros with it, right? So that's kind of cool. Depending on what brand you're getting, make sure you look into the software. Because, say like Logitech, Logitech seems to be kind of a common like gaming peripheral product that's available for most people, right? But, you know, their gaming software that, you know, that supports like, supports like the wireless mouse and so on and so forth. This thing has not been updated since 2018. And that's a long time, you know. Part of the reason why I'm such a fan of like the Roccat and the Swarm, this software is always being updated, and is one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of Roccat, both the mouse and the software, right? Because they're being updated, right? So the keyboard that I got is a Corsair, the K95 RGB Platinum. But yeah, this keyboard itself is $200. Yeah, they got like the K55 and RGB gaming keyboard, and like this one has like the little macros on the side, which is what my keyboard has, like these macros. And that's pretty much what we're going to be using to be creating the macros that I want to show you today. So, you know, you got to download the software, the IQ, and pretty much this one unlocks a lot of features so you can like control your keyboard, right? Or whatever peripherals you have from Corsair, right? The cool thing about this software is that you can actually create a macro. So you go to actions, you create a macro, right? When you create the macro here, you can actually assign it to any key on the keyboard itself, right? So you have your main profile, which, you know, you can use it when you're typing like on your desktop or whatever, right? But if you want to create a different profile, say for like when you're editing in Premiere Pro or whatever software you're using, you can create a separate profile. That way, like instead of like these keys being like your standard, you know, keyboard layout, like, you know, the letter I, the O, the P or whatever, you actually assign a macro to those keys. So when you press them, it has another function, you know, added to it, whatever you want it to be, right? So I think that's pretty cool that you can do that with this software, right? And with these keyboards. I'm not going to get too crazy. I'm going to just keep this super simple, right? So the macro that I want to show you is something that I use on every video that helps me to save time when I'm doing my rough cuts, right? I have my own custom layout when it comes to doing my shortcuts and my hotkeys and all that stuff. And as you're editing, I do encourage you to like find a layout that works for you, right? But for this video, I'm just going to go set this to a default, just to keep things simple, right? So when Paul is speaking, obviously there are moments where he has to stop, regain his thoughts or whatever, or he makes a mistake, he needs to go back. So you're gonna have a lot of areas where it's very silent, right?
It's getting further and further back. I wonder at what point we won't be able to see light mode anymore.
So now we have all this silence to cut out.
Timestamps should be available if you want to jump ahead.
Okay, so now, you know, you could get, say, like the blade tool, you cut that, you know, make a cut there, then you get your selection tool. Oh, see, I already fucked up. So you get the blade tool, you hold, I think it's shift, and you cut through there, you hold shift, cut through there. Get the selection tool, select that, you know, delete that, you know, delete that space, you know. Now you have like, you can zoom in here. I can select this edit point, then apply a transition. That way you don't have just like a hard cut, right?
Mode anymore. Mode anymore. Timestamps should be available if you...
Okay, so everything I just did, I created a macro so I can just push one thing and it does it all for me, right? So everything I just showed you using the blade tool, the selection, the deleting, and adding the default transition, I can do it in one macro. Check this out.
Let's start with the second part of your question.
Oh, you missed that? Let me try that again.
What software limitations when it...
So yeah, pretty much I did that. I just like, you know, I did my edits really quick and I was able to like jump back a few frames and hit play.
What software limitations when it comes to the...
You know, and all you have to do is hit one button on my macro on my mouse.
And then also perhaps limit...
So doing that saves me a lot of time, especially when I'm editing, right? Because obviously instead of me doing everything manually, selecting the tools that I need and all that crap, I just create a macro on what I need when I need it. I just push one button on my damn my Roccat Nyth mouse, and it's like boom, 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 it does it all for me, right? All right, so just a fair warning. Now, I'm using a Threadripper 2920X 12-core processor. I got a 2080 Ti. My macros may work seamlessly, right? There are times where like there's a hiccup, like it fucks up, so I have to undo it and I have to redo my macro process all over again because just something happens, it slows down or whatever, right? So my macros work for me for my computer, right? So hopefully by me showing you this, it'll work on your computer. But I do encourage you to try to create proxies when you're editing, right? I'll put a link in the description so how I create proxies. It's an older video. I intend on making a new video how I create proxies, right? It definitely increases your workflow and it puts less strain on your computer when you're working with proxies, right? That way, when you're editing, your processor is not like spending time to decode your compressed footage from your camera. Is working off the proxies. That's a lossy file. So that way the playback, when you have proxies, you can see that. Scrolls very fast, right? If I disable the proxies, as you can see here, it kind of like it stutters. Yeah, because the computer now, the processor is taking time to decode what's going on, right? It has to like decode the compressed file. That's why you need to create proxies, right? Anyways, I want to stick to my video here. All right, so we want to go to our edit. We're going to go to keyboard shortcuts, right? And like I said, to keep this simple so you guys can follow along, because I create my own shortcuts, I'm going to go to default, right? Now, the first thing you want to look for, move playhead to cursor, and that's right here. I'll make a list either in the descriptions or on the monitor or on the screen, right? So you can like follow along. But pretty much when I go to move playhead to cursor, and as you can see, there's no command for this. So we're going to click and drag this. I'm going to put this on F3, right? So I just created a hotkey to move play to cursor. If I hit OK, now when I hit F3, see I'm hitting F3, the playhead is jumping to where my cursor is at. We need that. The next shortcut that we need is this one, add edit to all tracks. This one already has a shortcut, so we want to write this down, which is Ctrl Shift and K. Make sure you write that down. Now the other hotkey that we're gonna need is a ripple trim previous playhead. Now this one already has a hotkey, and that is Q. Write that down because the letter Q, right? The next one, select nearest edit point as roll. This one does not have a shortcut, so again, I'm gonna grab this, click and drag it to F4 and write that down. The next one is pretty much apply default transition to selection, which is this one. It already has a shortcut of Shift plus D. Let's write that down. Then the next one is basically step back one frame. And this one is basically the left arrow. But the one we're going to use is basically the step back many frames. It's the shift plus left. Pretty much it jumps back. Instead of one frame, it jumps back 5 frames, right? So we write that down. Then finally, the play, stop, and toggle, which is spacebar, right? That's standard, right? So, write that down. So basically what we're going to do with our macro, with all the hotkeys that we just created and that we just wrote down, we're going to hit F3. It's going to jump the playhead there. Ctrl Shift K makes an edit. Then we're gonna hit F3 again, jumps there. Then we're gonna do the ripple trim to previous edit by hitting Q. Then we can do select the nearest edit point as roll. We set that to F4. Then pretty much apply a transition, which is Shift D. Now we can step back a few frames, holding Shift and the back arrow. I do that 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then hit play.
So I've got a couple articles linked
So if I zoom in here, we just did all this.
for those. So
Now obviously we need to trim this a bit more, so with a hotkey that we just created, say F3, we could just jump there and hit Q and boom, right? Same thing over here. Maybe it needs a little bit more trimming. You can hit F3. And I think it's W to trim to the next edit point. So now if you move back.
over those. So I've got a couple articles linked.
All right, so basically everything we did to do that quick rough cut edit, we need to create a macro here, right? So macro run. I'll double click on it. I'm gonna name this, let's just say rough edit macro. So pretty much in this area, we're gonna hit record, and everything we just did to do that little rough edit that we did in the timeline, we're gonna record it here. Make sure you do not do not record delays, right? You do not want to record that. We're going to add our own delay, but not through this. Pretty much, every time you take some time to hit the next key is going to record that, and we don't want that. We just want it to be like a one clean shot. Remember I said to write down everything we just did? That way you remember what you did. That's how you create your macros. Be sure you write this shit down. All right, so we're going to hit record, and following the steps that we wrote down, I'm going to hit F3, Ctrl Shift K, going to hit F3 again. I'm going to hit Q. I'm going to hit F4, then Shift plus D, then holding Shift. I'm going to hit the left arrow 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then hit the space bar. And then stop recording. Click on here. It stops. And as you can see, it records when you press it, when you release it, and so on and so forth, right? Now, we need to do one more thing. All right, so I'm going to zoom in here, plus or minus. So the first time when we hit the F3, then hit Ctrl Shift K to make a cut. Obviously, we need time to move our mouse to this location. That way, you can hit F3 again, and then does the trim, right? Let me Ctrl Z that, right? So that time that we need to jump over here, we need about a second or so, right? So we're gonna add that second. So before the second time we press F3, where we move the cursor to the playhead, we want to add a delay, right? So in this case, we can go insert new event. Actually, we don't want it there. We want it before the F3, right? No, don't add event. So we want to hit the last release shift key after we made our cut. Before pressing the F3, we're going to insert a new event. Boom, that's what we want. So we want a constant delay. These are in milliseconds, right? So basically, we want to add 1,000 milliseconds. 1,000 milliseconds equals 1 second. All right, so add event. Yes. So now pretty much what that's going to do is going to give us time so we can move our mouse, right? All right, so basically we want to assign our newly created macro. Just highlight it by clicking on it. Then you can pick whatever key you want, right? So in this case, I'm going to do the bottom one just to keep it simple. Then it's assigned, right? So now if we go over here, if I push my macro key.
Price. And basically 16 gigs is going to...
And there you go. Now if I just jump over here, but push that little macro just created. Jump, give me time, cut, there you go.
Now those limitations are...
Yeah, that's basically it. As you're editing, pretty much instead of like, putting out the tools to cut all these little gaps, I could just hit my macro. Cut, 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 cut. One more thing before I go. When we go to edit, you go down to preferences, and then you go to general. You want to go to timeline. And right now the default transition is at 8, right? So actually this is too long. 8 is when I add like that slow transition when I cut to a B-roll, right? So it has like that slow transition to a B-roll shot, right? In this case, when I'm making my rough cuts, I set these to 2, both of them. I hit OK, using my macro that I just created right now. Boom, boom, stop. Let me just zoom in here. So you can see the difference, right? This is like the 8 seconds transition, the 8 frame transition, and these are 2, right? For the most part, I use 2 when I'm doing like the quick cuts in between paw. That way it doesn't seem like that abrupt change. It has like that small transition from like, in between the cuts. So it gives it, and so it feels more natural, right? Rather than being like abrupt, right? So like I said, I use the IQ for this tutorial because like I feel like Roccat Nyth is more of a niche product. I do like this software a lot. I do encourage people to buy this damn mouse. People are not willing to pay $100 for a mouse. If they rather expend that money on a nice keyboard, cool. Just make sure you got something that has macros built into the size, right? And the IQ software is okay. Honestly, I prefer the Swarm. Just the layout of it just makes more sense to me. It's just like you have more control over the mouse and like the way how you're able to organize your macros. I prefer it, to be honest. This software, the IQ, is not bad. Once you get the hang of it, obviously just with anything, you can get good at it. Whatever you feel comfortable with, that's pretty much what I'm trying to get at, right? So as you can see, overview, by hitting one button of the macro, I just push that, boom, snap,
$8.
snap, move, snap. Cool shit. So I'm going to end the video there. If you made it this far and if you appreciate the video and if you like, learn something new, leave a like, leave a comment and all the good stuff, right? And also like down in the descriptions, I have a PayPal link. I'll put an image to my PayPal link is, PayPal me, /Joseph Aguilar, that's my name. The link's in the description, if you want to like help me buy some coffee, the good stuff. If this helps you out and to help you create your content or to help you make some money or saves you a lot of money so you don't have to go to school and get yourself in a bunch of student debt, buying me a coffee is a nice way of saying thanks, right? So anyways, I'll leave it as that. I hope this video helps and yeah, take care and peace. Cheers.